Hi there, and welcome to Talking True. In today's episode, I have a repeat guest who is joining me. His name is David Bingham, and David and I are going to be exploring unusual phenomenon and how this phenomenon can shape and direct our lives and can also create spiritual awakenings. So don't go anywhere, stay around and join us for Talking True. So, shall we just dive right in and talk about you? You had a really powerful experience when you were young that was weather related. Do you want to just share that? Are you happy to share that?
Yeah. So yes, it seemed like weather. Let's put it that way. Uh, I When I was about 8 years old, we were on a family weekend away in Devon, and my father was driving late into the night over Bodmin Moor, and we ended up stopping earlier than we expected at a small inn, which I later found out only recently is actually the original Jamaica Inn that was written about. And also, it's a famous inn for being uh, having energies and ghosts and such like
Oh,
haunted
really?
houses, so to speak. So I knew none of that, but we stayed overnight. I must have been about 8 or nearly 9. I was asleep in one room with my sister, and also the parents were about 5, 10 meters away down the corridor upstairs in this old inn. I woke up in the night because my sister was stirred and she was getting up. And she said to me, "Oh, don't, settle back down. It's nothing. Why are you getting up?" And she said to me, "Well, I just was worried a bit about Mum, and I wanted to check her out, check how she's doing." So she went out of our dark room into the corridor, and it was well lit corridor. She, she took one step and she came back in again quite quickly. I said, "What's up?" But she said to me, "Don't worry, just don't go out there."
Well,
being being a bit of a naughty kid, 5 years younger than her, but trying to obey her at the same time. I let her settle into bed, her bed, and I saw that she'd pulled over her covers and she was trying to get back to sleep. And I decided after 15 minutes, yeah, I want to see Mum too and see if she's okay. So, because I was quite heart focused with my mum, and I stepped out in the corridor, and in the second step that I made inside this hotel corridor, I was hit by a wind. Yeah, the weather phenomenon. It was it wasn't a normal wind though. It felt like a very quite powerful whirlwind, which actually grew in force the more I pushed against it. And there seemed to be an element of intelligence within the wind as I was pushing against it. Because even though I was never had encountered phenomena like this before, I was just thinking, well, I need to go and see my mum, and I'm not going to give in to this wind. So I pushed, and my little body actually was started to get into quite extreme situation of pushing against this what felt like a whirlwind. All the windows, by the way, shut in the hotel. And I remember at one point I was sort of holding onto the sides of the corridor, being dragged sideways nearly by this effect. And I thought, well, I'm going to get there. So I was screaming and shouting for my mum, and I managed to get near the parents' door, and the wind died down temporarily. And someone who seemed to be my mum came to the door. Except my mum, seeing a distraught child, uh, her own child, she would have come out to the corridor, put her arm around me, and taken me back to my room. Except she didn't. She sort of stood anxiously in the doorway and sort of just said quite urgently, "Get back to your room." Thinking it was my mum, I obeyed, and that's what a kid would do. After all that big, huge fight, uh, you know, uh, I'm told to go back to my. So I wandered back down the corridor, and I went, yeah, and I noticed that there were still traces of the wind around my ankles, as though it was sort of just dispersing, but also following me back. And I got back into my room after this sort of massive event for me. And I noticed that I was shaking like a leaf in the bed once I pulled the covers over. I was uh, quite traumatized by it, but also feeling a mixture of sort of elation as well, because I'd fought the good fight against whatever energy was out there. I hadn't given in, and I'd done my little best. So, uh, sort of little fierce warrior was pleased, and the other part of me was quite scared. And I remember saying to myself at the time, what the hell did you get yourself into there? The event itself, as I said, uh, happened when I was about 9, but I was leading what I felt was quite a conventional life, so there was nowhere to shelve this. There was nothing to do about it. So I gradually forgot about it over the years. And I think it took about 5 or 6 years, and then it just drifted into the back shelf of my memory. It was filed away under "can't make sense of this," I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, and one additional thing was that I inquired of my sister more recently, once I recovered this memory, about that evening, and she doesn't remember me going out, but I was pretty sure she was asleep. And she said that she went out and she just had a really bad feeling about what was going on out there. And then the next morning, she said she was sitting briefly with my mum on their own before anyone else came down. And my mum said to her, "I thought you and David were really trying to see me last night." So she'd picked up on the effort that had been made.
Yeah. So did you
So
did you speak
yeah,
to your mom at all? Did you mention it or ask her about
not
it
that
the next day?
our family wasn't a great talking family, uh, but I mean, also it's so out there. Do you say? I actually didn't raise it. Uh, I just thought, well, how can I even talk about this? So I had nothing. I had no place to put it except just to bury it. My Kundalini awakening was tied to events where I was, I've mentioned to you before, was tied to events where I was going to therapy, because because I'd remembered this memory from when I was 9. And I thought, I'd like to know more about this. I went to, a guy I knew who was a hypnotherapist in Liverpool. And I said, look, I'm trying to dig back into this. Can you help me? He said he'd try, and we went. And the first session was focused on trying to recover some of this memory. I recovered actually most of the memory seemed intact, but I recovered little extra edges, little tiny little perceptions, extra things. But it wasn't hugely different. I wasn't sort of masking some kind of traumatized event where something had been completely blocked from my consciousness. It was mostly still there. And what happened was midway through the session was that somehow the recording of the event came alive again in my body, that sort of cellular memory or whatever you might call it. And I I noticed that I started shaking. Like I remember, the effort, and I was crying, and I was sort of exhausted, and I'd been through a physical ordeal, and it was exactly, 100% exactly the same feeling I'd had in that bed when I finally lay down after the adventure, so to speak. And it sort of struck me that somehow that this whatever I'd shelved away hadn't been dealt with, of course,
Hmm.
and that by somehow recovering the experience again, that I was actually sort of somehow freeing myself of it a little bit as well. So it was actually, it felt almost like it's like a CD recording or a DVD inside your cellular structure. It was in me, marked me, and I finally felt it all again. And this was a great release for me, and it culminated in the second session where I had as we've talked about before, a major Kundalini awakening. So it must have prepared the ground for that shift, I would think.
Yes.
So yeah, there's more I can say about this, but I'll hand over back to you now.
Yeah, so I'd just like to unpack, that story a little bit, because we do our best within, whatever the context is, in describing phenomenon that is outside of our usual kind of experience, right? And you were detailing it as a wind, like the force, like the wind. But did it feel malevolent, or did it feel benevolent? Could you kind of determine what that felt like?
And tell you what
Because
I
I know you
felt at the
said,
time. Yes. And
yeah.
also what I feel now, because I have discovered some other things. So, what I felt at the time was that there was an intelligence and that there was an intention. I don't think I think it was it had some malevolent quality, but I don't think it actually was trying to necessarily harm me. I think it was really trying to shove me back into that room. I wasn't wanted. And Also, I noticed as well the proportion of the resistance of this spiraling wind, which might have contained an entity inside it, um, was it rose in proportion to my effort. So
Mm,
again, there's evidence of intelligence at work. So it was like it wasn't like I was quite fighting myself, but it had some relationship to that. It knew what was needed to try to stop me, and I knew what was needed to try to overcome it.
mm.
And there was this battle going on. So for me, this is not just a natural phenomena at all. It's a kind of subtle phenomena, really. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but it reminded me of blind Bulgarian mystic Baba Vanga. She was sort of famous in the 20th century because she was regarded as a prophetess in native Bulgaria in the countryside. And people used to come and visit her, and she would foretell things about because she had spirits and things telling her stuff. But all this happened as a consequence of an event when she was a child, when she was about 11 years old. And she encountered a wind. And she remembered going to a, uh, a well in the countryside to fetch some water. And it was away from it was definitely in the countryside. And she, When she got to the well, she encountered these spiraling energy of wind that was quite powerful indeed. She described it as composed of samodivi, which is a Bulgarian name for sort of nature fairies, I think, which can be quite potentially
Mhm.
quite nasty energies, I suppose. So she encountered this wind at the well, and in her encounter with it, the wind overcame her and took her up. And it was like Wizard of Oz almost stuff. It took her, it must have been over a mile away, and dropped her in a field covered in mud and dust, and especially her eyes, which ultimately never recovered with the medical treatment at the time. So she lost her sight, and she gained, I have to say, some new elements, some pretty strong new elements of insight. So her life was changed by the encounter with that wind. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the same as Baba Vanga, but I can tell you that from my experience, my encounter with that wind energy has affected me deeply, and I feel it to the present day. It's almost like I'm marked through with it, like a stick of black rock with the letters inside it.
Yes.
So it's a fundamental moment in my life where I was tested against something, and something changed within my entire system.
Yes. I can relate to that because I have my own story. Now let me think, I must have been around maybe 10 or 11, something like that. And I went to the local park with my brothers and my sister, and we were just playing, and then this massive, great big storm moved in, and we ran for shelter. What we called it, the old man's hut, which was like this little kind of open spaced hut with benches, and you could sit there and under cover. So we were sitting there and just waiting for the storm to pass, and it wasn't passing. It just got more and more strong and heavy, and there was thunder and lots of rain and so on. And after a little while, we saw my mum arriving, and she had 3 or 4 different umbrellas, and she came to rescue us to bring us home. So I was a little ahead of the group with my umbrella, and they were chatting and just trying to kind of stay dry. And I looked up, I had this enormous clap of thunder, and then a complete sheet of lightning literally fell down in front of me. And it felt like it was inches away from my, hitting me. I was literally about to step into it, and then I just pulled back. And I remember screaming, and saying to my mom and my brothers and sister, did you see that? Did you see that? And they didn't. But I felt it. I just felt this enormous charge that went from my feet all the way up through the top of my head. And I knew it was something really profound, but I couldn't describe what that was. I didn't know. There was no context, no meaning for it or anything. And that memory stayed with me for years. And because it felt like it was so charged.
Yes.
Yeah, you just don't forget it. It was like it had an imprint on me. And what happened almost immediately was the lucid dreams, out of body experiences, and all the other things that I'd always had since childhood became more magnified and more frequent. And I've told those stories many times, so I won't go into that. But here's the kicker to this story. When I was, so this event happened when I was around 10 or 11. When I was in my 30s, I had a Kundalini awakening, a dramatic Kundalini awakening. And a few years after that, I was given a spiritual name by the great being who gave me Shaktipat Diksha, and his name was Bhagwan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri. He gave me the awakening, the initiation in a lucid dream, and then some years afterwards, he gave me a spiritual name. And I forget the spiritual name in Hindi. I wish I could remember, but I can't remember it. But I knew the translation. He told me that the translation was lightning. Mm-hmm. And I knew that there was a correlation between what had happened when I was younger and him giving me this awakening, because, ever since I was a child, I was always looking for someone. I knew my kind of path in life, my journey, my focus in life was to find someone. And I didn't know when I was a kid, what that meant. But I knew the minute I saw this being or this person, I'd recognize them. And of course, that happened when, as soon as I saw Bhagwan Nityananda of Ganeshpuri, I recognized that he was the one that I'd been looking for. And my intuitive understanding now, all these years later, is that he appeared in the form of this lightning as a way of initiating or starting the process or deepening the process, or however you want to describe it, because it really did. It kind of shaped my life. And of course, it's really hard to put these things into words, but they are real and you really feel them. And as you said, it does leave this imprint on your life, in your body, in your soul, in your mind. And
that's like we've both been marked. Yes.
Yes.
I was before we began this video today, I was doing a little bit of research into Bhagwan Nityananda and trying to jam up a little bit. And I found that there were several people that have had him actually visit them in lucid dreams.
Yes.
And I've made a fundamental impact on them within these dreams to change the currency of their spiritual life, to give it a boost, shall we say. So your story connects quite interestingly to what some other people are saying about this guru, who obviously passed quite a number of years ago. So this is fantastic that he's somehow out there floating in the ether and tuning into the people perhaps with the latency and capability for him to visit and aid. This is marvelous.
Yeah, and he's really quite renowned in India. Obviously I'd never heard of him before. I mean, I was raised as a Catholic in the UK. What did I know about Shaktipat and Kundalini and all those things. But I do clearly remember when I was very young, I had this deep interest in learning how to meditate and learning how to practice hatha yoga. Nobody else in my family was interested, but I remember going and trying to find a book on yoga so that I could do it, do some of the asanas. And there was this feeling that I'd been there and I'd done this before, and it just felt very natural and innate. And yeah, the same was true when I went to India, and I actually stepped out of the airport, in Mumbai. There was this deep kind of sigh. I'm back. Where I'm back where I'm back where I belong, and this deep recognition that I've been there before.
Mm.
So, and that's the whole of the story of past lives and all of those things.
And connections potentially with India and maybe the guru himself, perhaps. But,
yes.
it's hard to put our fingers on these things, isn't it?
Yeah, it really
just going back to the the storm that happened. I think you wrote to me and you said that the signs of the storm were quite unusual before it happened.
Yes.
You said there was some unusual, like electrical activity. Was it in the clouds or something above? Or
yeah, it was.
Was there something going on? Yeah.
Yeah. So when the storm first started, there was just what I would call dry lightning. I don't know how else to describe. When there's just lightning and there's no rain. There was all of that going on. And then the thunder started, then the rain really began pouring down heavily. And there was also some weird movement with the almost like you were saying, with a kind of whirlwindy kind of movement in the trees. It was really quite frightening, actually. And I really understand why my mom would take it upon herself to come out and rescue us. Because ordinarily she'd leave, back in those days, there wasn't quite the same protection around children. There was more freedom, so we would be left to our own devices because my brother at the time would have been 13 or 14, and we'd have just managed to get everybody back home. But that was the other thing, that she would actually come out to try and rescue us with these umbrellas. Obviously she could feel intuitively that there was something very strange about the whole phenomenon, and it was
to get these kids to safety.
yes
Yeah.
And the other part of that was that what really surprised me was that nobody in my family saw this lightning. It was like literally
they were only a few steps behind you, weren't they?
They were only a few steps behind. It was a wall. It was like this wall of light that literally fell down and landed right in front of me and just lit. And it was like everything was standing up on end when because I could feel it, and they didn't see any of it. So that was really intriguing to me. And then
yes. Yeah. I mean that sort of begs the question of the linkage between natural phenomena and perhaps supernatural phenomena as well.
Yes.
Because I mean, just thinking out loud now, normally someone following a few steps behind, even if they didn't really want to see the lightning, they would notice it. Something as massive as that. So there's an element of the spiritual world, the supernatural world. And it seems to me in that experience, especially the swirling energies around the trees and stuff, it sounds like there was forces yoked with nature at that point, doing something in the environment very close to you.
Yes.
And then suddenly this massive wall. Wow, what an experience.
Yeah. It was quite some, and then as we're talking now, what I'm kind of remembering and realizing is that after I got Shaktipat, after Bhagwan Nichinana gave Shaktipat in a lucid dream, this incredible electrical phenomenon started to manifest, both outside and inside the home. I'd have fans that would start spinning that weren't even plugged in. Light bulbs would be bursting. I had a brand new microwave that just completely stopped working after I had a dream with these yogis and we were talking about pure food and, you know, which kind of food we should eat, I should eat, and so on and so forth. So there was all these kind of weird electrical forces that were you know, going crazy
Yes.
inside the house,
Yes.
and weird stuff happening outside as well, with lights, you know, going bright, and sort of more mini whirlwind things, and just you know,
You're getting
crazy things.
lots of clues. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and you know, the mind can never.
It's very hard to, I don't know how you feel, but it's very hard to sort through these things at the time because we're noticing them and then we're going on and we're living our lives and then something else happens. And it's about feeling our way into these things and understanding what they mean. And obviously, I don't have any answers for what you might say was your lightning experience, but apart from the gods were interested in you.
Yes,
uh, uh, but you know, I mean, plenty of mythology around Zeus and also Hindu gods as well to do with lightning. Um,
yes,
uh, but uh, but I mean, these are explanations of human experience and encounters with lightning. Um,
yeah.
yours was sounds like a very special event indeed. No,
Hmm. Yeah.
I can't say much more than
Um,
that, except
no, I
it, you know,
know.
it's
Yeah,
transformative of the whole nature of your being. You know.
yeah. And then of course it continued, you know, and expanded, and sometimes it does take a while. It can take years or decades even to have a full understanding of what it's really all about, because the mind can never fathom these things out, right? Because it's just so far beyond the capacity of the mind to be able to sort of understand.
Me 48 years after my event before I came back to it again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the strange things that happened didn't really have any home with me. So I couldn't, with my mind self, I couldn't make sense of it. So I think that's probably why I shelved it away for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm really pleased that I found out again about it, and I actually got to the bottom of it, which was quite a surprise. But I did get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, it
Don't know if I've
helped.
mentioned that to you before. No.
No, well, you
Uh,
could. I mean, if you want to detail it, it'd be great.
my dad passed away a few years ago, and I was involved in caring for him, and he had Alzheimer's, or dementia actually. And there was a very quiet moment in this living room where we were just sitting, the two of us, and this was only about, say, 6 years ago, something like that, maybe. And we were sitting in his living room, and it was like a sort of slightly supernatural silence dropped on the room. It was almost like a augur for something. Uh, and uh, and I was looking at him, and I saw in his left eye, I saw that the eye was changing, and it changed from a normal human eye. He had sort of grey blue eyes into a sort of murky, muddy pool of energy, uh, an intelligent energy that wasn't him. And I was looking at this, and I recognized the feeling from it, the energetic. It seemed like it was like a low energy, like a low, murky energy that wasn't very profound, but was within him, living as a co-inhabitant, perhaps within him for many years, perhaps. And I recognized it, and it recognized me. And it was from that fight in the corridor. It was the same energy signature. So what happened all those years ago, it seems, my conclusion is that I encountered an energy force that was stronger at the time within my father as a younger man, and that energy somehow became more magnified in this very open place of this Jamaica Inn where things get magnified a bit. And I encountered that in that form. That was the battle, and it remembered me. I could actually sense fear in its eye because it was being seen and remembered. And so uh, I learned really on the spot what was going on. That which was generated all those years ago came from him. It was something that was within him that got into him, and or at least that's my opinion. And after some time, there was some trouble one day, a few months later, with I'd already had my Kundalini awakening by the way. There was some trouble with his behaviour because people with dementia get very disinhibited and angry sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to care for him at home with a bunch of helpers and various people. And I got a phone call to say it's trouble brewing. So I went round. I knelt down and, in front of him just instinctively. I sat him on a chair and then just knelt in front of him, father and son. And I put my hands out like this, and he put his in mine. And I just immediately felt my left hand ignite with a really beautiful golden energy, soul energy, or whatever, however you all describe it. It was just woo. And then, curiously, I noticed his hand ignited as well. And same energy signature, soul energy. And I was able to peer through his illness with him and have a conversation with him. And I said, "Can you feel this, Dad?" And he said, "Yes, yes. What is it?" And I said, "It's you. It's who we are. This is who we really are. And I want you to know that you're suffering at the moment with these memory problems, but I'm always going to be here to hold your hand and remind you of who you are." And at that point, the energetics in the room changed hugely. It was like it's a normal house room, but there was like there were clouds above us somehow, and they were opening, and I could hear a celestial choir, and I could even feel some kind of magical light shining down on the event, as though something was being observed here that was unusual. And I don't usually have Christianic things, but it was basically like one of those old pictures you see in a church. It's that kind of encounter. And at that moment, I think that other thing that was within him left. It couldn't hang on any longer. It was released from him. He was different after that. He wasn't so difficult as he had been before. He was, and he had a great run through to a very, very successful ending in his life. So even though he was being stripped of his personality, his soul was laid bare, and he was who he needed to be. And so that was the culmination of that original fight in the corridor. And in my imagination, at least, I think I, strangely enough, got involved in an act in liberating my father and myself in that process. So transforming the heritage of the generations before us as well. It seemed to be so, at least. So
Wow.
that was, yeah.
That's beautiful. That must have had a huge impact on him. So when he left his body, did he leave peacefully?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was fine. And you know the way that people talk about people who are close to death, they start to see things.
Yes.
Well, it was about 3 months off, and he wasn't able to talk much, and it was during COVID, and so there was barriers between us, and the microphone and stuff like that. But he took a look at me at one moment, and he said, "You're not afraid of anything, are you?" And this was curious to me because, in truth, that's the way I felt. But something within him came out and just spoke a truth of what it recognized. And later, towards his death, when he wasn't able to take solids and fluids and stuff like that, he looked up at me at one moment, and his face changed. It became one of wonder and rapture, and he was looking above me. He was looking at what was around me, what was going on, and he just, wow, it's like he's just, this is fantastic. It was that kind of reaction. I could just see the wonder on his face. So he was seeing things just before he went, you know.
Wow.
Well, it
Yeah.
touched me very deeply, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't feel that I could ever do anything more in my life better, or perhaps well, it's wrong to do a value judgment here, but you know what I mean. I can't do anything more significant than that which I did for my father, because it was a difficult journey with my father, and fathers and sons, there's issues.
Yeah.
And I managed to transform my relationship with him and his future and my future within our lifetimes, rather than healing wounds after someone's gone or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, that was the culmination of the whirlwind, really, in a way.
Mm-hmm. So today, how does that manifest in terms of the work that you do?
Wow, good question. Uh, well, I've reconciled elements of my beingness, that which was my mother and that was my father. My mother's very loving home bird. My father's very warrior out there, but not necessarily paying attention to things. Those two potentials within my two parents and my genetic potential within that seems to have come together. So that which that the potential for the child to realize the message of the parents, I think, has mostly become realized within me. And so I carry that with me, and it informs what I do and how I live.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, the thing that happened with my father is unforgettable. I got to see aspects of experience that my more conventional self would find normally very hard to accept. But I've accommodated that. And my particular Kundalini journey has allowed me to sort of fuse elements of that, so that there is a unity, there is a sense of deep peace, a prolonged samadhi for 5 years now. And it actually, I think it just guides me in everything I do, because as you know yourself, when you get closer to that which you truly are, your soul, when you can get on with things. And so that's where I'm at now. How do you blend those experiences, those sometimes quite strange and surreal experiences, into that which you are? And
Yes.
of course, the stronger the experience and the more difficult the experience, then the harder it probably is to integrate. I don't see myself as a teacher. I can be an ally and a friend to people, and I hope that will grow. But my experience is unique to me as well. So as yours is. So the equations that we both have are absolutely unique of all the billions of human beings on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So what the mind tries to do is it tries to build a story from what we know, and then perhaps pass that down to other people as learned knowledge that they would benefit from, good wisdom. And
Yes.
perhaps there's something to that. But I think the reality is that everyone's going to have different experiences depending on their 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 life's journey, the soul's journey, and the cultural and personal situation of the person and their history, their family, and everything. So, who am I to say that I know exactly what is coming for someone else? Uh, I don't really have that presumption. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty hard for us to figure out what's coming for ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
how do we then somehow turn into people that have the magic formula for others? You know, your guru, basically, it was his sheer presence that had the profound effect on people around him at the time, and how
Yes.
people came to recognize the value of what he truly was, which seems to me some kind of siddha or something, you know.
Yes.
So, uh, uh, yeah, it's that's the he wasn't going out of his way to be a teacher all the time, and I think from what I read about some things, he was a bit awkward at times with people as well.
Yes.
So, if someone was wasting his time or wasn't on the right path, or he couldn't do anything to shift things, then off you go. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
you know,
That's
yeah,
that's the Siddha way. They will just kick people out if they feel that they're coming for the wrong reasons, or sometimes seekers would go to Nityananda and they would be watching him to see which way he's holding his hands, and then they would count how many fingers were on view or whatever for betting purposes. Um, or they'd come to him for, to get more money or something, and all of those things have their place, I guess. But if there was too much of that, yes, Nityananda would just kick them out and send them away. And it was his state that did the work. It was the power of his state. So he very rarely spoke. He would use very, he would speak in aphorisms, or he'd say one or two words maybe once in a while, but for the most part, he was silent. And yeah, it's the silence that does.
I mean, I was reading what they call his Gita, which is a
Yeah.
series of things that have been recorded as him saying. I couldn't just, I mean, not that I can't pretend to be on any level with him, but I couldn't disagree with what he was saying. So it really struck me as being, he was on the button. It was just, some of them sound a bit random because I think they've been said at different times and just put in this collection of phrases. But you can just feel the echoes of the wisdom coming out of him now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, my favorite one is the heart is the hub of all sacred places. Go there and roam. And that says it all, really.
Yes, yes. I've not had the great grace to be visited by a guru in quite the way that you had, which was really a Shaktipat, wasn't it? It was, someone really fundamentally got involved as a core experience in that way. But I did obliquely have an experience of that, again through a lucid dream like you had. I was having this dream where I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was at some kind of social party, and I was wearing somebody's hat, and I was sort of dressed quite smart. I was very conventional, wearing a suit, I think, this other man came over and started sort of barging into the conversation, and like an irritant, putting his elbow in almost, and. I thought, well, what's all this about? I'm going to do off art. So I went and walked into another room, but he didn't leave me alone. This guy, he followed, and he was really in my face. He was shoulder barging me this time. I thought, well, I'm at a party or not, doesn't matter. So I just instinctively reached out and I grabbed his face with my hand, and the face disappeared like a balloon losing the edge. And behind it appeared a guru. And the guru, I later learned, was Meher Baba.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I didn't know at the time. And this person was almost, I don't know, maybe somehow summoned by me, or at least connected to my will, but appeared and had no facial hair because Meher Baba had a long moustache and some long hair as well. Had no facial hair, and I think people in the astral sometimes do appear that way, sometimes without hair. But anyway, I didn't know who it was, and he just had this sort of quite curved, long nose and distinctive features. He was probably in his 60s, about my age or something, and he was just staring directly at me, not saying anything, and it's kind of fierce stare, really. And I was looking in his eyes, and they were the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen. They were rainbow eyes. They were total chakra Kundalini energy eyes, filled with all the rainbow colors, and just the most beautiful irises. Powerful as well. It was like, wow. And he didn't seem necessarily overpleased to be there. He was just sort of summoned, and he appeared in this instead of this person. And there was no words exchanged. And I was a bit naive in my sort of approach to things. So I didn't know what to say, but I thought, oh, I've got to say something. So I said, hello, Mr. Kundalini. And at that point, he disappeared. So perhaps it wasn't the best thing to say. But I was at a loss for how to react to this wondrous face that I was seeing. And the message that I got from that was that sorry, cutting out something there. I went and researched. A few weeks later, I looked in books for various people, what this person. And then eventually, I came across a picture of Meher Baba at that age. And I thought, oh, it looks very much like him. Am I right? Or, maybe I'm 90% right, but am I 10% doubting this? Is it? Maybe it's not him. Uh, and then I came across an image of his consort or one of his strongest followers, Mihira Baba, uh, really his wife in some ways.
Hmm.
And she jumped off the page at me. It was like I knew her. And not only I knew her, I'd known her all my life. And this was a puzzle to me because like, why are you receiving this? But I just sort of knew, just intuitively knew. I knew what made her tick. I knew her soul, um, and I'd known her a long time. And so then I was on the trail. I thought, well, okay, you've got some proof now. There's something going on with Meher Baba. He is that person who appeared to
Hmm.
you. Um, he is the person behind the conventional other person you pulled away. Uh, and there's something down the line. Somehow you have some recognition of this person, his wife, and a hero. And then I looked a little further into it, and I found that, well, he passed away in 1969. So if you're to go by any influence that might happen through reincarnation or anything like that, well, it doesn't tick that box necessarily. But
Yes.
then I suppose the question I'm left with, which I haven't resolved, is, well, why would, like your guru, why would this person particularly appear for me? And the significance of that obviously is pretty massive, but I didn't fully get it. Uh, uh, and, uh, and I think probably I have somehow I have some elements of him in me, or elements of what he was in me,
Hmm.
perhaps. That's that's
Yes.
that's a very tentative conclusion, but
Or,
uh,
or some
I don't know
relation,
what.
a
Yeah,
relationship that from the past or something.
yes, maybe someone who knew him and her very well, possibly.
Hmm.
Uh, but then I suppose the reincarnation cycle doesn't always hinge on conventional dates, does it? I don't know.
No,
I
no,
wouldn't claim that I was Meher Baba. So,
no, 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 no.
but it's interesting to have that encounter and then try to make sense of it
Yes.
again, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Uh, and my honest answer is I haven't really made sense of it. Uh, it's one of those conundrums. Obviously, a powerful and significant influence to some degree,
Hmm.
and obviously someone who's around to signify something important for me.
Yes.
Uh, that's as
Yes.
far as probably I can. Yeah.
Beautiful. And of course,
Thank you.
great beings, Siddha masters, give initiation through the eyes.
Mhm.
Um, Shakti just pours out of their eyes,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can feel it.
Maybe that was part of it then. Maybe yeah, you could be
Yes.
right. Because
Hmm.
it was a profound effect on me. The eyes, it was enormous. They were the most powerful and wonderful eyes you could ever see.
Hmm.
Uh, and they were there for me, for a while
Yes.
at least.
Yes. Yes. So that's a blessing, a huge blessing.
Yeah.
So, David, I think we're almost at the time of ending this episode. But before we say goodbye to viewers, do you want to just share anything that might be of interest for them? Words of
Uh,
wisdom, or how they can get hold of you, or any of those things?
uh, well, how to get let's do the how to get hold. I'm a little elusive, but for those that are inquiring, they can find me on Facebook. I think you're going to post a link, a Facebook link on my intro, and if you want to get in touch with that, you can contact through Facebook and then Messenger from that. I'd be happy to receive people's interest and inquiries. It's fine. I live in Crete at the moment, and I'm continuing to do so. And in the future, I think I'll be organising more small gatherings of spiritual journeyers who might want to come and have a sort of combined holiday kind of retreat thing. So perhaps eventually some people who are interested might want to come and do that.
Mm.
But like I said before, the main thing that we all give each other is the placement in the heart as you described, and being in good alliance with other people as friends. That's the main thing, I think.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, David, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, it was an absolute pleasure, really great pleasure. And thank you for sharing.
Speak soon. Take care.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, I really appreciate you being here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And please spread the word. So take it easy, be well. And that's all from David Bingham and from me today. Bye.